Hello everyone, today I'll be playing an older game, Combat Mission Shock Force, and the scenario is called Daria Tank Raid, named after the eponymous fighting that occurred in 2013. This scenario is by George MC, a well-known map maker, and it captures, in my idea, the natural conclusion of what was a very foolish tactic employed by the Syrian Arab Army. Now, despite the Russian media's best attempt to make this look like a sophisticated and well-thought-out tactic, tank raids essentially consisted of forming a fist, punching through to strong points, depositing infantry, and then withdrawing as night came. And of course, this scenario shows a potential fatal flaw in that, in which the two dismounted platoons I have been under attack and outside of support all day. The scenario begins at 5:30 with my company team, with the bulk of the company's combat power, including the BMP-2s that did not stay with their infantry, punching through to try and either relieve or extract the dismounts. Now the situation is the two platoons in their strong points are in an all-around defense. They're at full strength, for the most part, but they're tired and they're running incredibly low on ammunition. With the exception of a handful of weapons that I've put on the roofs, for the most part, in Strong Point 1, everybody's on the ground floor. Strong Point 1 is a weaker of the two. It doesn't have high walls surrounding the entire one, and it's got good fire positions surrounding it. Relieving Strong Point 1 is a top priority, compared to relieving Strong Point 2, which, in addition to being a walled compound, has more intact buildings and is able to cover Strong Point 1 with its limited amount of weaponry. Based on the situation in Strong Point 1 and Strong Point 2, as well as intel given to me in the briefing, my scheme of maneuver is a two-pronged attack, with the leftmost column consisting of the bulk of the combat strength, and the rightmost column being more of a command pull. It won't try and force a barricade, but it'll try and probe and see if it can't find a way through the Strong Point 2. The reason why I'm selecting Route Red and Route Blue as my axes of advance is because we simply have the most amount of intel on this. Route Blue we know to be held by RPG and small arms fire, because an attempt made earlier in the day is repulsed. Route Red we know to have a barricade. We're also told that the main highway in Route Green, which would otherwise be the obvious route of ingress, is heavily mined and there's IEDs everywhere. Now I'm expecting IEDs to be all over the place. I'm expecting high casualties. But the mission is get into Strong Point 1 and 2, assess the situation, either rearm the beleaguered platoons and then push out to finish up the enemy, or mount them up and get the hell out of Dodge. We'll see what my combat strength is like by the time I make it down the street. The mission is going to be defined by a lot of prep fire, a lot of popping smoke with the tanks, and occasional dismounts by my only mounted platoon to check blind corners and whatnot. It's only a very short distance to get to Strong Point 1 or 2, but I'm expecting it to take upwards of half an hour if I want to do it safely. obvious that I grossly underestimated just how quickly strong points 1 and 2 would come under attack, and I'm beginning to realize that carefully picking my way through the streets and preserving my relief column's combat power might not be a viable option here. Route Red as well, contrary to my error of assumption, is actually pretty much impassable. These vehicles here, I could squeeze bimps through them, but there's no way I'll be able to get through them fast enough to make an appreciable effect, and they're most likely covered given that there's ditches here. I'm most likely going to redirect my effort from Route Red through the marketplace, blasting holes in the wall with 125mm, and trying to get the dismounted, the still mounted platoon, the 3rd platoon of the rifle company, in these built blocks here. The thought process is, once I get these men established in the blocks, they'll be able to cover strong points 1 and 2 from further attack, and they'll be able to cover the vehicles as they work their way forward to relieve the beleaguered troops. Market along Route Red. Along Route Blue, basically nothing is going right. The mortar bursts from the enemy insurgents are actually damaging my tanks, only minor, and I get immensely lucky. My lead vehicle is covering down an alleyway waiting for the rest of the platoon to take its positions when it takes a hit from an SPG-9 despite the 2nd tank getting a shot off. I'm incredibly lucky because it doesn't seem to do any damage, and as I proceed, I take a 2nd RPG just as I begin moving, followed up quickly with a return shot from the 2nd tank. So it's a healthy dose of blind luck and just good cover arcs. True to my word, the Route Blue advance is supposed to be a command pull. And just as the briefing suggested, I'm taking an immense amount of fire. I'm not going to try and force this bottleneck. Strong Point 2 is doing much better than Strong Point 1. I'm going to pull Route Blue back and see if I can't find an alternative route through the side alleys. This is a risk, but it's better than going through RPG Alley over here. As the turn begins, I've begun redirecting the relief columns, I start to come under attack again at strong point 1 and 2. There's quite a bit of movement, and it looks like the insurgents are no longer just firing from rooftops and from high stories, but are actually beginning to move into the strong point. I lose a heavy machine gun team within the strong point, but inflict several casualties. Most of the men have managed to maintain their fire arcs still, so I'm hoping to give the insurgents a very rude surprise when they break into the strong points. But given the lack of ammunition, if they break in, it's curtains for the 2 platoons. Now, in the apartment block, I'm able to overrun a couple of weakened RPG teams with the loss of only 1 casualty. I'm going to get the dismounts as planned on the roof and hustle up my armored vehicles to try and relieve strong point 2. I might actually interrupt the attack as it's happening, and that would be ideal. I've made the redirection from Route Blue. I've gone off the paved road. I've stopped taking RPG fire, but as I move around the corner, I don't trust that rubble, so I put a command arc. As you can see, the turret is moving, and sure enough, I'm saved by a tree as an RPG impacts harmlessly against the tree, and I'm able to take out a couple of RPG teams. Once again, blind luck intervenes, because I probably would have lost a T-72 there. However, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. I'm going to continue to push up this relief column through the side streets towards this tower-like complex and try and relieve strong point 1 and get some ammunition to them. Now, as for the platoons in the strong point themselves, they're actually still pretty combat effective despite the casualties they've taken. So if I get the ammunition up to them, I'm going to push out and try and mop up the enemy. Everything is now more or less in position to attempt a relief of strong point 1. The relief column, seen here, actually starts crossing the street, and because of their speed, they actually avoid taking an RPG to the flank. At this point, I can't risk wasting time moving around trying to get individual ambush teams. I just have to push past them, and in this case it works. And the relief column, the 2 tanks, and the 3 BMP2s rather, form up in this alleyway, and they wait for the dismounts to take position. Now as the dismounts assume firing positions in the block overlooking strong point 1, they discover what looks like an IED triggerman. He's promptly killed. They mop up what's left of a heavy machine gun team that didn't open fire on us for whatever reason, but then, as a turn comes to an end, we luck out. They take an RPG shot from somewhere near the back of the map and only suffer a couple of men lightly wounded. The goal now is to pour the fire onto these suspected positions and the actual RPG so I don't lose half a squad, while the relief column storms out of this alleyway covered by the black smoke, deploys, lights up these buildings, and pushes up much needed ammo and resupply to the beleaguered strong point 1. lot happens this turn. We'll start with the good, I think. The dismounts have taken control, they've cleared their casualties, the T-72s relieving strong point 1 have spread out, and the BIMPs attached to the dismounted platoon, they're coming in and they're going to be delivering much needed ammunition and supplies, and will be pushing out to clear out the enemy, because I think most of the units are still pretty battle worthy. One of the squads in the 3rd platoon, the dismounted relieving platoon, is at 5 men, but it should be okay. Now for the bad. The Route Blue team has been trying to be working its way around, be sneaky, and I've decided to pull them back and reroute them through the successful Route Red attack, which you can see right there in the distance. However, as I'm pulling them back and trying to move them down yet another side alley, I take an RPG to the rear, and I lose, hopefully, the first and only T-72 of the match. The culprit is quickly spotted in ruins, and by some miracle, he misses a follow-up shot. I'll be hopefully taking care of him next turn, and then proceeding down this alleyway, and proceeding through the cleared section of the marketplace and the apartment block, and these guys will get their much-needed supplies to Strong Point 2. Strong Point 2 proper has been pretty quiet, especially since HE fire has driven insurgents from the rooftops. However, as the turn comes to an end, we actually see, in this little irrigation ditch, enemies crawling into the area. They'll have a rude surprise when with Strong Point 1 in the midst of being resupplied, with T-72s outposted covering all possible angles, and with a fairly good bit of intelligence on where the enemy insurgents are attacking from, or covering me from, I've decided to proceed with mopping up and going from enemy casualties rather than egressing out of the zone. Strong Point 2 is still under fire. The PKM team is taking casualties. There's a handful of casualties among every squad, and more alarmingly, enemies we're seeing crawling into the buildings across from them. However, I'm confident I can take the fight to the enemy without incurring too many further casualties. Strong Point 2 is going to hold their position, mostly because of the enemy's proximity to them, and of course due to the fact that the Route Blue resupply attempt was a total disaster. I've lost a T-72, most of the vehicles are damaged. They're going to pull back all the way to the line of departure, which they're in the middle of doing, and then follow up behind the more successful Route Red attack route. In the meantime, the dismounts that started from the departure line, 3rd platoon, are going to mount up, resupply themselves. They're going to take and clear this group of buildings. This should cover the rear, and will allow 1st platoon, which is Strong Point 1, to attack through either this building or this building, or both of them, in conjunction with the T-72s and the remaining BMP-2s, and kind of swing around this apartment block here in the left hook, because I suspect this apartment block is absolutely crawling with enemies. It's where I've taken most of the sniper fire from. It's been, where I've seen the enemy filtering down, so on and so forth. It seems to be the main nexus of enemy presence, and it's currently about to be bombarded by 120mm barrage. I have a small section of them. Haven't really used it yet, but I'm going to put down a full barrage on this building to try and suppress and cause some casualties. And the first spotting rounds have landed, and I'm confident that the barrage will be landing next turn. Hopefully, I can put the firepower to good use, and I'll be able to wrap this mission up without exceeding rather, the 20% casualty threshold. Been a very chaotic couple of minutes, and the firefight has definitely intensified. Strongpoint 2, they've stopped trying to crawl into Strongpoint 2 or sneak their way in. They're just barreling in. And it's been a point-blank firefight between the buildings they've infiltrated into and the forces running in. And most of the squads have been reduced down to grenades for self-defense, and it's perfect timing. Strongpoint 2 is finally able to resupply. And they start doing it one squad at a time, or one element at a time. The only squad that still has ammo left dumps the rest of it, and Strongpoint 2 is, I think, safe to say, in the clear. Now, moving up on the left, and trying to swing around Strongpoint 2, pivot on Strongpoint 2, has invited just an absolute massacre of insurgents. Like, large groups of them have been caught moving in the open, trying to filter down alleys, rush into buildings I myself am trying to clear. But at this building here, some unfortunate fratricide occurs because just as the squads start moving in to clear it out, they take some fire, and they deal with some contacts. But more enemies manage to break across the street without the BMP and the T-72 repeating their feat from last turn, until it's too late. The T-72 fires a shot, it scores many kills, it wipes out by and large this group of insurgents, but it also wipes out about half the squad. Fratricide happens, it's blue on blue happens. This is really down to the game AI, nothing I can do to prevent it, just gonna have to roll with it. First platoon was having much more success. I'm able to rush up one of the squads that had been picking its way through the building, because I realized the building's clear, the insurgents are gunning for it, and they're able to get up into this building here and to confirm a large amount of KIAs from the 30 mil, and are able to outflank this building, which has been providing a base of fire for the attacks into Strongpoint 2. Not a very good one, but nonetheless. I think it's safe to say that I've accomplished the majority of my objectives. Once I'm convinced Strongpoint 2 is completely devoid of the enemy and I mop up the insurgents here, I'm going to hit the ceasefire.
أنا بشوف العدو.
Push up for a couple of turns and I don't really get any more significant resistance, just a handful of stragglers that don't really have any stomach to fight and are either quickly killed or rout off the map, since this game doesn't have a POW system. But I decide to ceasefire, having accomplished what I felt was the majority of the objectives. I've destroyed a large number of the enemy force, well over half, resupplied strong points 1 and 2, and to my surprise managed to keep my casualties below 500 points, scoring myself below 20% rather, scoring myself a major victory. I suffer pretty serious casualties. More or less, a Syrian platoon is out of the fight. 3rd platoon, especially because of that fratricide, and for the fact that they were the ones that had to help facilitate the break-in to strong points 1 and 2. Was pretty beat up. 1st platoon, which was the platoon occupying Strongpoint 1, is also a little bit worse for wear, unsurprisingly, as Strongpoint 1 came under the heaviest attack. And embarrassingly, I lost a tank with that ridiculous attempt to move through the side streets, which of course in hindsight probably wasn't a good idea. But on the whole, I'm fairly impressed with my own performance, and this mission was tough. It's nerve-wracking. There was a lot of angles to cover. I've never used target arcs as much as I did in this game, or in this match, and as the game ends, I'm shocked to see that T-62s had arrived on the field. So I apologize, it looks like I ended the game before something exciting happened, but I don't think they would have had much of an effect. They would have been coming into fairly prepared positions. I was trying to get a tank at every corner to help cover the advance, let my infantry mop up in peace. So, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Shock Force hasn't aged as gracefully as the rest of the titles, but definitely remains a very unique and fun experience.